Hello, my name is Bidemi. I'm a fundamentally curious individual. I learn by talking to people from all walks of life, and that shows up here on the Big Picture podcast. So, with my background in academia, technology, and cybersecurity, my goal is simple: to help you build a healthier relationship with technology, whether it's your devices or emerging tools like AI, and ultimately how all of that shows up in your everyday life. So I do that through honest conversations with experts, founders, and problem solvers, in addition to deep dives on the topics that actually affect you. If you've made it this far, thank you. Whether you've been here since I started recording on January 11, 2021, or you are listening because a friend shared an episode on your group chat, every single play reminds me why I started. Today, this show reaches 193 countries, and that is because of you. So, here is a small favor that would make a big difference. If you listen regularly, but for some reason you haven't followed or subscribed yet, please tap follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And then share this episode or your favorite episode with one person who would find it useful. Right now, less than 30% of regular listeners follow the show. Joining that group helps me keep bringing you thoughtful conversations and timely deep dives in technology, cybersecurity, and everything in between. I promise to keep showing up every week with my very best and with guests that you actually want to hear from. So thank you for listening, thank you for sharing, and thank you for being part of the Big Picture community. So thanks again for joining me on another episode of the Big Picture podcast. I have a special guest from up in New York State. Over to you. Actually, no, Washington, D.C. or Washington
Yes, Washington, D.C., yeah. Okay. Washington, D.C. I lived in New York
right.
For about 11 years, but I'm in D.C. now.
Nice.
I'm a writer. As mentioned, I lived in New York, now in D.C. I've been writing for probably a dozen years. Contributing writer at Forbes. I've had articles in The Atlantic, Washington Post, USA Today, a host of different magazines. I write a lot on education, and I write even more on academic misconduct and education fraud, credential fraud, misrepresentation, this whole sort of area. I've had, for example, a newsletter on fraud and misrepresentation for going on 4 years now. We just crossed 400 issues of the newsletter and have about 5,000 subscribers now.
Yeah.
I've spoken at conferences, the whole thing. So my view on, I don't know, we're going to get into this in more detail, but my view on generative AI when it came onto the scene was sort of unique because I'm a writer. And so obviously writers were paying quite a bit of attention to generative AI, and also having written about and covered fraud and cheating for so long. My view was, I think, sort of unique watching it all develop.
Nice. So you've tracked cheating and academic integrity for years. What do you find as the most surprising shift since generative AI exploded?
Like all technologies before it, in cheating, it has shifted the way people cheat. There's good evidence that it's increased the rate of cheating as well because it's now free. It's universally accessible, not acceptable. It's universally accessible. You can access these tools anytime, anywhere, like I say, for free, and they're so easy to use. So it has driven up the rate of cheating. More people are cheating now than before. That's contested. There are some people who disagree, but I think the evidence is pretty strong that it's expanded the number of cheating incidents. But what it's definitely done, what no one disagrees on, is that it's changed how people cheat. The best example of that is, not even 3 years ago, a company called Chegg was a multi-billion-dollar company. on the New York Stock Exchange.
Right.
Was just everybody was in love with everything they were doing. And today just yesterday they announced they've laid off hundreds of more staff, and they fired their CEO for the second time, and their stock is now worth about $1.50. Because people didn't need to pay for answers, pay Chegg for answers anymore. They could get those answers for free from generative AI. So it's just shifted how people engaged in the misconduct more than changed how many people were doing it.
Right. And to your example of Chegg.com, for those who are not familiar, Chegg, Chegg, it's this website where you log on. I think they have a subscription model. You basically pay to find answers to homework. And like we're discussing before we started recording, I came to the US in December of 2012. I was familiar with Chegg because I had classmates. I came for grad school, but then in the library, I would see undergrad students, mostly undergrad students, opening Chegg.com on one screen, and then another browser had their homework on Canvas, and they will be using, back and forth to maybe do the homework or find steps to then help them complete the homework. And it's interesting to see that over time, from 2012 to 2022, when ChatGPT became very popular, we see a decline in the usage of Chegg, and nobody's going on there because you can do the same homework on ChatGPT and all of ChatGPT's cousins, and you don't have to pay for subscription on Chegg and all the similar websites to Chegg.com.
Yep, that's exactly right. I'm glad you're familiar with it, and that description is right on. Their best seller, Chegg's best seller, was that you could ask any question and they would get you an answer any time of day within 15 minutes. They had people all over the world who were just on there waiting to answer questions. And you could plug those questions into your homework or your test or whatever you were doing if it was online. But now, as we mentioned, ChatGPT will give you the answer in 8 seconds instead of 15 minutes. And you don't have to subscribe, right? You get it for free. It'll just tell you. So, it's really destroyed Chegg's business. I don't think they're going to be around much longer. But that's the clearest evidence of it's just changing behavior of people who are searching for shortcuts.
Right. And again, in academia now, I have an academic background. A lot of professors are complaining that students are not learning anything. So I'm quite familiar with how some universities and community colleges and four-year colleges are handling these students using ChatGPT, and a lot of programs are online, asynchronous, meaning the professor is not even on Zoom teaching the class live. It's recorded. The students read or watch the videos at their own time. They turn in the homework at their own time. So you cannot even check who is using ChatGPT or not. Some of these programs on the teacher's end, they say they have AI detection tools. Well, it's one AI tool detecting another AI tool's usage. There's so many ways to bypass that. So now professors are saying, well, students are showing up with A-grade papers. There is no way to test that this student actually knows this content. You can run tests and do exams all day long. The students still find ways to bypass exam proctoring because AI systems now overlay on your screen and the teacher cannot detect even using proctoring software. So all of this to lead to my question saying, how much of AI generated content from your perspective is slipping through in classrooms and then of course in academic writing like journals and articles, publications and so on?
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you're really familiar with this. In classrooms at the college level, there's good evidence that almost all of it is getting through. If you forced me to give a number, I'd say 60, maybe 70% of it is going undetected. And there are lots of reasons for that. Some schools have turned off their detection systems. They just have stopped using them. If you're not going to look for it, you're not going to find it. Professors have all kinds of reasons not to want to see it. It's a real pain to accuse a student of cheating.
Right.
There's forms to be filled out. There are hearings. The students almost always say they didn't do it. You have to gather evidence. The students get upset, and then at the end of the course, they leave you a bad review in your course review. and that affects your, whether you get hired next. There's just all kinds of reasons why professors just don't want to deal with it. So most of it, honestly, just gets not found, and even when it is found, it isn't acted upon. And in academic research writing, journal, you're talking about journal publications, academics or other researchers at institutions who do work. There's really good evidence that a lot of that is being missed as well. I wrote about this in Forbes maybe 2 weeks ago. Good story, funny story, depressing story. A journalist in the Netherlands, just I guess for fun, he was writing a book, so it wasn't for fun, but it was part of his book, asked ChatGPT to write a research paper on whether mental telepathy could be detected on a brain scan, and wrote that mental telepathy could in fact be detected on a brain scan with something like 90% accuracy. And then added in the paper that mental telepathy was easier to spot when space aliens were in the room. And in the paper, he literally wrote, "We did no research. None of this is true." He thanked ChatGPT in the credits and acknowledgments. He said it took him an hour to get ChatGPT to write this up with made up data and the whole thing. An American medical journal published his study on telepathy and space aliens when it was obvious to anybody who even looked at it that it was fake, right? Somebody, a medical doctor who's led this field of looking at academic research integrity, was speaking at a conference maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now. And he said, in his view, the number of retractions that we're seeing in academic journals should be 20 times higher than it is today, in his estimation. And I think he's well low. I sent him an email about that. But the shorter answer is, I think already there's a lot of AI content in academic journals that the academic journals are not catching. They're not prepared to deal with. And I don't know that anybody knows what to do about it.
Yeah, I agree, because it's one thing to tell ChatGPT or all the other generative AI platforms to come up with something. And because it's an AI system, it's programmed to give you an answer. Whether that answer is true or not true, how factual it is, it's up for debate, because some of the students, again, back to students in schools, they don't know what references look like. Some of them are running this ChatGPT answer generation at 11:45 p.m. and the paper is due at midnight. So it gives them something, and then the references, there's no time to double check anything, because if they had time to do it a week ago, then they wouldn't need to use ChatGPT anyway. They could have just done the research themselves and just,
And that's where you see too, these generative AI tools can be very helpful. They're powerful tools. They're great, especially if you're already an expert in what you're engaging the tool to do. Because then you can say, no, I know this isn't correct, or no, this isn't exactly what I wanted, or this doesn't really answer my question. If you have a really strong foundation already, then ChatGPT or some of these other programs can make you better, right? It can help. But if you don't know what you're doing, if you're a student, you're not going to catch that it's wrong. You're not going to be able to refine it or prompt it or shape it in ways that really are helpful.
Right.
And so in that sense, it's really not helping learning. But if you are, like we're saying, if you're an expert already in whatever your expertise is, can be. I've seen multiple uses where it can be quite helpful.
Yeah, I was trying to do some simple experiment the other day. I was asking ChatGPT to come up with recipes for a West African dish that I'm very familiar with, jollof rice. So it's this West African dish. It's not even unique to one country, and it's made in Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Gambia, pretty much the entire West African subcontinent. And there is this mini competition, the country that can make jollof rice the best. But anyway, ChatGPT, come up with recipes for jollof rice. I have this ingredient: rice, tomatoes, peppers. And then, of course, it came up with a recipe. And then I read through, because I know how it is made in Nigeria. I'm thinking, this doesn't even look like what it's going to look like in other West African countries. it's just coming with an academic approach to making this popular recipe. If I follow that, it's not going to be edible. I know that. But someone who doesn't know anything, maybe someone in culinary school saying, come up with a recipe for me to pass culinary exam, is going to come up with that. Someone like me is going to judge that recipe, that dish after they make it, and then they fail the class.
Yeah, that's a great example, right? Because you had expertise, you could guide it or even reject it. Say, no, I'm not going to use that. I don't know if you remember the story that went wide. I don't know how true it was, but within 6 or 8 weeks of ChatGPT coming on the scene, people started to realize its answers were just sometimes wrong. And somebody had posted a thing that they'd asked ChatGPT how to keep the cheese from sliding off their pizza. You remember that one?
Yeah.
They said, how do we keep cheese? And ChatGPT said, well, there's several things you can do. And one of them was like, glue it down. Yeah, okay, thanks. That is a solution, but no.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is be an expert in pizza to know that that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Or glue, either one.
Yeah.
But if you're doing high level research on genetics or astrophysics, and you don't have a foundation of knowledge to be able to guide the tool, you're going to find yourself in deep trouble very, very quickly.
Yeah. So that leads me to my next conversational theme, I guess, structural incentives. So you've been around for a while, the role of structural incentives in writing, in research, and so on. Sure. Which structural incentives in academia and publishing reward speed and volume over rigor? And how does that turbocharge all the junk and slop that AI is producing now?
Yeah, great question. It's easier to answer in publishing because it's pretty easy to see when you have publications, websites, newsletters, magazines, whatever they are, and they're prioritizing eyeballs and clicks, right? It's like, it's always some famous actress from the 1980s. What does she look like now, right? That sort of thing. Or like, 10 things you must pack on your next vacation. Those sorts of articles we see all the time. Those are websites prioritizing your attention, and they're just trying to get the click. And for them, AI content is faster and incredibly cheaper. It's free than paying people to write that stuff. And they will put up 1,000 articles in a day. And they don't really care if they're accurate. They don't really care, what they say. They're trying to get you to click on them and stay on their website as long as possible. So that's sort of one model. And honestly, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as you know what it is and you know that that's what you're looking at. And then there are other magazines and publications who hire experts who use talented writers and trust them to tell human stories in their own voices. And those nameplates really don't want AI because it undercuts their value proposition. And there aren't really, I think you're going to see, my guess is I think you're going to see two things. You're going to see that gulf widen. There won't be many in the middle anymore. People are going to go clickbait AI crazy, or they're going to reject it entirely and rest on having, deeper conversations that are person to person. So the incentives are, the question becomes for those human to human conversations in the deeper publications, can you get the audience to pay for that? What is the subscription model that'll keep that system alive? Because what's paying for the other one is obvious. It's the clicks and the ads that pop up when you're on their site. So that's the monetization chain. If you don't want that, if you want something, in my view, that's better and more authentic, you're going to have to pay for that consumption, because otherwise those people, organizations and media groups and publishers that take that route won't be able to survive without consumers paying directly.
So now this leads me to ask about detection versus verification. Detection tools keep getting gamed and they now yield false positives. That's kind of the basic expectation now. No AI detection tool is 100% accurate anymore. So why isn't better detection enough?
Well, two things. The AI detection tools are like cars, right? Some of them are, 1978 Ford Pintos. I don't even know if they made a Pinto in 1978. I'm making that up, right? They're just junk, and they ought to be not on the road. They're unsafe. They don't work well. They flag things incorrectly all the time. And I'll take a little bit of a tangent because we got a minute, but most of the AI detectors that you find if you Google AI detection, right, and it gives you the list, and you see some companies up there. Most of the ones that are free sell services to bypass AI detectors. So what they do is anything you put in there, it's going to tell you it's filled with AI, even when it isn't, because they want to sell you the solution to clean it up. The example I use is like, if you have a house or apartment wherever you live, and somebody shows up at your door one day and they say, "Hey, I'll give you a window inspection on your house for free." Right? You say, "Okay, that sounds great." Well, what do you think they're going to come back and tell you? You need new windows. Right? I mean, so this is it's a free inspection, but they're going to come back and tell you it's a problem because guess what? They sell the solution. So most of those AI detectors are just pure garbage. And that's why we have conversations about false positive. Yeah, they're false positing. They're giving false positives because they're selling a way to fix it. But on the other hand, there are a handful, 3, maybe 5 detection systems that are excellent, really, really good, highly accurate. They don't play around with selling bypass tools. Their accuracy rates are, 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000. They're really good. But the problem is, like we were talking about before, because those companies don't sell bypasses, they don't sell hacks. You have to pay for them, right? If you're in a school, your school has to subscribe. If you are a publisher or an editor, you have to buy a subscription to use those good tools. They work, and they work very well, but they're not publicly accessible. So when we talk about, AI detection, does it work? We're talking about a Ford Pinto versus a brand new Ferrari. They're both cars, and it's very difficult to say the cars don't work. Some cars are awesome, man. I want a Ferrari. But, other cars, if you gave me that Pinto, I would say no thanks. I'm better off with a bike. It's not worth the hassle. So I just think it's important to be very clear which ones we're talking about. Okay. Rather than put them together like that. And I'm sorry, what was the first part? Oh, detection. So it can work if you use the right system and you know what you're doing. It can be highly accurate. Okay. And verification, this is what I've sort of been pushing more recently. It's the same system. It's just operated sort of upside down. Rather than having an AI detection system be like a police officer, where you stand in the intersection and watch the cars go by. Boy, I'm all about cars today. Where you stand at the intersection and watch the cars go by and issue speeding tickets and say, "You're driving too fast. You didn't put your signal on." Right? That's how AI detection is viewed now. And what I am trying to push or getting people to do is get their stuff verified, so we don't have police at the intersection. You get a clean driving record before you get in your car, right? We can get the work authenticated and verified before it goes out in public, so we know when you roll up to the intersection, we already know you're good. We don't need the police officer there anymore. Yeah. It's the same technology. It's just run at a different place with a different intended outcome and for a different user, essentially. That it's intended for the writer, the content, me. It's intended for me to get my stuff verified, as opposed if you were a publisher, if you had a magazine, to have you sort of check it when it comes to you.
Sounds good. So in terms of this whole idea of human authored, I believe it's the Authors Guild that came up with that idea initially. How would a certified trackable verification system, how would that system work outside of trade books, for example, preprints, journals, and newsrooms, in comparison with that human authored idea by the Authors Guild?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you try to say that again one more time? Sorry.
So the Authors Guild human authored idea, have a registry, a seal, a public lookup, and so on. If there was a certified trackable verification system, independent, standalone, How would that work for regular publications outside of journals and newsrooms and so on?
Sure. A couple of things. The Writers Guild does have that you're talking about, but it is a promised system. There is no checking. If you go there, they ask you literally check a box, and you say, "Yes, I promise I didn't use AI on this," and they say, "Okay," and they give you the badge. And one thing as a certainty from, I know as a certainty from spending years covering academic cheating. People who are going to use Chegg or ChatGPT to turn in their homework are going to lie about using ChatGPT and Chegg to turn in their homework, right? So asking somebody, did you write this yourself? Is sort of useless, right? It doesn't. That's great, thank you. It doesn't help. It doesn't give us any information that's reliable because there's nobody checking. It's just an I promise system. So that exists, but it's not really very helpful. So what I think you need is a verification system where there is an actual check and a verifiable fingerprint and an independently certifiable record that anybody can check. And how that would work is if I'm a writer and I have a piece I want to get in the Atlantic, and I write it up, or I write up the proposal, and they say, "This is great. We like this idea. Go write this piece, 6,000 words. It's due in 6 weeks." They would tell me, and we're going to want a certification that this is human written when you turn it in. Or better yet, if I want a good relationship with my editor and a good relationship with the Atlantic, I'm going to volunteer that. I'm going to say, "Hey, when I turn this in, I'm going to turn it in with this certification that you can check yourself. It's all good. I'm not playing around. I'm not trying to kid anybody here. You can check it yourself." And they say, "Thanks. This is great." Now we have a better comfort level. And there's full honesty and transparency on both sides. Academic publishing also, say one more thing, and magazine publishing, and even academic writing. Use of AI is one thing. It's misrepresentation, it's fraud, it's deception. It can be if it's used inappropriately. Let me say it that way. It's not always that. If you tell somebody you used it and they're fine with it, that's okay. But where it becomes a very, very serious problem is that, as you probably know, AI-generated material, text that AI writes, can't be copyrighted. It carries no legal protectability. So if you are a book publisher, that's a big problem. If you're a movie studio, that's a huge problem. You can't put $100 million into the next sci-fi trilogy or action adventure characters and realize you don't own the characters or the universe. You don't own any of it because the screenwriter used ChatGPT to create it. You better figure that out before you start shooting or you're going to be in real trouble, right? Same thing with book publishers. If you're about to spend $100,000 to put writers on a book tour and send promotional copies to reviewers and invest all this money, you better make sure you own it. And that's a real problem. Sort of transcends magazines. Magazines, if they print something that's AI generated, they might get embarrassed. They might have to retract it. Put a publisher's note. Oops, we missed this one. Sorry. And that's bad for them. But it isn't. It doesn't have legal consequences of, losing the Harry Potter franchise because you find out that the person who wrote the novel on which it's based, or person who converted that novel into a screenplay, took a shortcut one night.
Wow. So in terms of policy that would create demands for verification, who's responsible for setting that policy up? Is it the tenure committees on the academic side? Is it the people that give the grants for the researchers? Is it the institutional review boards, the IRBs? Who exactly is responsible? Is it the universities? Is it the publishers?
Good question. Universities could do it. They are, and I say this with all the love in my heart, they are really, really slow at figuring things out, and even slower at doing anything about it. So they could, but I don't think anybody should wait on that to happen. That's probably not very likely. The best source is publishers. The publishers who own the journals and are responsible ultimately for their content. to have a verification system in place so that they don't have to issue retractions and they don't get themselves in trouble. And if they start saying to, in academic publishing, if they start saying to researchers, hey, when you submit your research thing to this journal, we really would like it if you went ahead and got it verified on the front end. So we don't have this question. We can move right to peer review. We can move right to desk review and speed up the publishing. That would be, in my opinion, a very, very good system. Especially since we get into it, the cost of that when you pay for a verification in academic publishing, in research publishing, those fees are usually paid by the university, by the department, or by the institution sponsoring the research. They're not borne by or paid by the actual writer or researcher. Almost never does that happen. So it's sort of a built-in cost to improve quality, rather than laying directly on the research team or the researcher. And that's why before we started recording, I mentioned that a verification system isn't really suited for academia, for schools, because asking students to take an extra step, especially if there's a cost to getting work verified before they turn it in, is a non-starter, right? It just doesn't fit.
Right.
You can't, no one's going to be for, hey, Brenda, before you turn in your sophomore Western Civ paper, go spend $8 to prove to me it's not AI. It's just a system that's never going to take root there. But will it take root in a book publisher? Yeah. If they say, hey, we're going to buy your book, we're going to give you $100,000 for the book, we're going to spend $100,000 to publish it, and we're going to spend $200,000 to market it. Here's your contract. By the way, we got to make double sure that this is what you said it is. Yeah, we got to double check it. And rather than put the book publisher in that position, if the author can come into the room, metaphorically, can come into the conversation with their certificate in their back pocket and say, hey, I know you're going to ask. This is a perfectly reasonable question. I know you're going to ask. Here's my certification. By the way, did you love the book or not? Right? That's what I want to get to. Like, let's make that AI. Can we trust you? Did you do the work yourself? Let's make that conversation a 1 second conversation when somebody pulls out their verification and says, yeah, I took this step already. I'm good. Okay, great. Love it. Let's move on.
Thanks. So to go on a mini tangent, if it's not going to be applicable in schools and academic institutions, what does that say about the future of education? Not just in the US, all over the world, because now you're saying students have, I don't want to call it a free pass to using AI for at least homework, if not for exams and, final exams. That dilutes the educational process, that generates or produces half-baked graduates. And where do we go from there, basically?
Yeah, that is a great question, but maybe I wasn't clear. I think you're differentiating between a verification system where the writer, the producer of the content, gets a verification before it's turned over to a professor or an editor or a publisher or an agent, something like that. That's what we'll call verification.
Right.
Checking, would be done by the agent or the editor or the producer, or in this case, the professor. I think universities are obligated to check, but it just has to be done on the professor side. It has to be done on the school side, because you can't ask students to carry that burden, right? In the bad analogy that I used before about the traffic cop, schools have to have traffic cops. Because asking students to take that extra step, especially if there's a cost, isn't going to work. And so, in a professional setting, you can ask people to bear, to put investment into their work. If they want it in a prominent magazine or they want their book published, you can ask them, right? Like, hire an editor. Yes, that's $5,000, but this is what we expect to get in this publication. Or, get a verification that this isn't AI. Yes, it's $60, but that's what we expect to get in this publication. These are our standards. You can't do that for schools. But to your question, right, the schools have to check. It just has to be on the school side instead of the student side.
Okay.
And if they don't, check. And sadly, many schools are just not checking. then your question is the question nobody wants to ask because nobody wants to answer it. It really devalues the entire process of education and issuing an educational credential, because fundamentally a degree, a certification, a workplace, or whatever it is that you got that says that you completed this course in a satisfactory way, that is an organization vouching, putting their name on a document that says, yes, we confirm that this person learned the material, they demonstrated mastery of the subject, they're competent and capable in this area. And if the schools don't know that's true because they're not checking the material, then the thing that they're handing out is worthless. It literally means nothing because they can't verify that the person holding the degree actually can do the work because they don't know if they actually did the work. So it's a real problem, and schools are once again late to wake up to it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a real problem. And you'd ask this, I can't remember if we were recording. I'll just say this, about ways people are cheating. The best way to give an assessment that is least susceptible to cheating is just what we're doing now, is a conversation, right? A one-on-one conversation where you talk about material. Ideally, that's in person. But you'll know very quickly in a conversation whether somebody knows what they're talking about or not.
Yep.
You're not, right? Talk to me about this book. In 2 seconds, I'm going to know if you read it, right? That system is very difficult to cheat. It's very easy to ascertain how much you understand pretty quickly. The problem is in modern academic settings, that's just not possible. How you have one-on-one conversations between a professor and 200 freshman chemistry students, especially if those students are studying online, is never going to happen. It's just not a possible solution. It's fantasy land. And so, the more things you have in that process, asynchronous learning, online learning, huge class sizes, the harder it is to verify those things. And I said this before, but especially if you're not even looking. And so many schools are not even looking.
Right. So for some guidance for researchers and authors, most of them are under publish or perish pressure. What's a practical integrity checklist for scientists who are under that pressure, for academic researchers under that pressure as of October 2025?
It's very much like being in college again. There are many opportunities to take shortcuts. There are paper mills that will write your research for you. They probably use AI, but you can just pay for a paper that you don't even have any idea what's in it, right? For very cheap, like I could do right now. You and I could go online right now, and within 36 hours, you and I could be cited authors on research papers, on any research paper basically in the world, for a few $100s. So I would get credit for writing that paper, even though I probably never even read it. There are lots of shortcuts in the system. AI is another one, right? That you could just in a couple of hours have AI spit out a research paper that doesn't have much value. So resisting those shortcuts and doing the actual work is really the only answer that's going to pay off in the long term. But that sucks, right? That sucks. It's hard. It's hard work. Like learning is hard. Research is hard. Being a researcher while you're also teaching classes and doing other things in your life is a hard thing to ask people to do. But I also will say it's supposed to be hard, right?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be difficult. Things that are valuable generally are hard to do. And also I think that, to your point too, I have to say that the publish or perish drive has been pushed for universities for a long time needs to go away. It needs to go away. It's obvious, but it's again evidence that schools are slow to understand things and then even slower to fix them. You can be an outstanding teacher, A+ in the classroom, really connecting with young people, expanding their mind and helping them understand difficult concepts, and not research anything ever. right? You don't have to be a good researcher to be a good teacher.
Yep.
And the best researchers I know, and some of my friends, are really lousy teachers. That's just not, they just aren't good there.
Yep.
And universities need to get an understanding that pushing teachers to publish gets you subpar teachers when you could have better teachers. And it gets you pushing good teachers to publish, gets you subpar research. And you just need to realize you have two functions. Research and public knowledge is one function and teaching is the other. And where they overlap is great. That's a rock star, right? Pay them, keep them, but you ought to be able to, in my opinion, nobody cares what I think probably, but you ought to be able to have a very long career, well-paid career in a university doing nothing but research.
Right.
And maybe supervising grad students in your research area and saying you ought to be able to do X number of classes and, teach them well and never set foot in nobody. I mean, research isn't in a lab, but I mean, you know what I mean? Never really do publishable research and just be like, no, I want to be a really great teacher. Don't put the research thing on me. That's not what I want to do.
So I see a lot of this segregation of duties in primarily research-focused universities, and also the national laboratories, at least in the US, the energy laboratories, where 100% of what goes on there is research. And most of those facilities are even secured facilities. Not just anyone can go on there. It's not like you can apply. They don't advertise their jobs on LinkedIn and you can apply and get a job. No, it has to go through the proper channels and you have to have at least a top secret clearance and so on and so forth. And then similar things with the cancer research centers that have medical doctors, not medical doctors teaching residents, medical doctors doing research on cancer. And every once in a while, they publish their research. Sometimes the research findings goes into a Washington, D.C. agency somewhere, and then it's marked top secret. Yeah. That's the value of what they do in those cancer centers.
Yeah. For sure. And, it's a bargain that makes sense at one level, but also just doesn't work at another, because a lot of those research centers that you're talking about, whether it's energy or defense or physics or cancer research, are funded by the government, but they're also heavily funded and subsidized by the universities, right? They loan staff, they loan equipment, they loan their facilities. Even though you may be studying at this research lab, your office is at, the University of Michigan. There's a partnership there. And the universities said at one point, if we're going to loan you professors and we're going to loan you equipment and we're going to give you money to do this research, if you can't share the research back with us, that's okay. But the person needs to teach 2 classes a semester. Right. We need to get something out of this bargain.
Right.
And everybody said, okay, that's fine. But it's not really worked well. It's just, as we talked about, you're not getting the value of that you think. So maybe that partnership needs to be reexamined at some level. But you're absolutely right. And to scare you even more about AI, maybe 6 weeks ago, the director of I'm going to get the name wrong, but I'm close. The American Journal of Cancer Research. So like one of the top journals that publishes research on fighting cancer, had said that I think it's up to 20% of the articles they'd published in the past few years had AI in them. And that 95% of those articles were not disclosed as having been written with AI. So this is cancer research that at the highest levels, that kudos to this person for getting on stage and saying, we have a problem in our Journal of Cancer Research, that researchers are taking shortcuts. And like we talked about earlier, maybe some of that's fine if you're genuinely an expert and you're using it in ways to help do things. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. That's out of my area of expertise to say that that's all bad. But certainly it needs an extra level of review, probably. It certainly needs disclosure, I would say. And we should be worried about it because it's so easy to use it in a lazy way. And we know people, right? People are not very good about resisting temptation.
Yeah.
And shortcuts are tempting.
Yeah.
And so it's something to worry about. I think I'm worried about it.
Yeah. And same for me as well. I do the podcast. I've had the podcast for almost 5 years now. Every time I upload an episode to be published, the audio file, when I upload it, it asks me to check a box saying, this audio file is a human generated audio file. There is no AI generated content for at least the audio, the human or the speaking part, because there's some music, that is,
sure.
beats generated and so on. Of course, I make sure to use non-copyrighted content.
Yeah.
And every time I have to check that box, and I'm thinking, I'm very sure now there are people who check that box, but everything on that audio file, or at least a big significant percentage, is AI generated, because they are generating audio that makes them look like one male is talking to another female and they're having a conversation, but the whole thing is AI generated. I can understand reading ads using AI voices, but that's a small percentage of your audio file, not 90% of your audio file. But what do I know?
Yeah. No, it's that's exactly where we are now, right? This is the people who still, I can't believe I can't come up with a better analogy.
Cars.
The people who are the traffic cops, right? Who are standing at that intersection or should be standing at that intersection. Their approach is asking you if you're speeding.
Well, I'm not speeding.
They're not checking. They're not doing anything with the information, right? They're just saying to you, "Are you speeding?" And everybody who's speeding is going to say, "No, I wasn't speeding." Right? It's completely useless.
Right.
This thing. I'm going to blow your mind now, or maybe you already knew this, right? When you put a book into Amazon's book marketplace, right? The largest bookseller in the world is Amazon.
Right.
When you have a book and you go to say, "I'm going to put it in the Amazon bookstore," right? There's a question, just like you described. Is any of this book AI generated?
Nope.
And it's yes or no. And you can click yes, or you can click no. And here's what they do with that information. Absolutely nothing. So even if people are being honest, which I doubt, but even if they are saying, yeah, this book is all AI written, it goes in the marketplace. And there's no way for buyers to know the difference. And I suspect the reason, I don't know this, I haven't asked them, I don't know that they would tell me, but I suspect the reason that they're not doing anything with that information on the question of yes or no is because they know people are going to lie, right? If you know that your book's not going to get published if you say it's AI, you're never going to say it's AI. Right. I mean, who's going to do that?
Right.
Who's going to go to the trouble of even having AI write a book, go to the Amazon marketplace, create the account, do all the stuff that they require, and know your book's not going to get published if you tell the truth? No one's going to do that. They're all going to lie.
Yeah.
And so, the system, it's the same thing we were talking about with the audio file you just described, with the universities, with the research papers, right? No one is watching. No one's watching. I mean, at most they're asking, but it doesn't really seem to matter what you say. It doesn't, because it's so easy to lie, right? There's no consequence for being dishonest, right? Creating the audio file with AI voices and then lying about it, there's no penalty for that. Nothing. So why would you not do it, right?
So let's talk about metrics. What metrics prove that verification is working? Is it the number of retractions? Is it faster reviews? Is it higher citation quality? Is it fewer false positive flags, and so on and so forth?
That's a great question. We don't know yet, because the verification system that I would like to see, where authors and researchers take that responsibility before they submit their material, isn't widely used enough to know, right? But what I would expect that we would see is the number of submissions across the board fall. because people who are taking shortcuts and writing, you see it. I mean, if you watch the retraction notices, there are researchers who are writing, in quotes, writing 6 papers a day. I mean, that's, there's the submission volume isn't sustainable by a human, right? Something is happening here that isn't legit. So you would expect people who are at least using AI, if that's how they're writing 6 papers a day, to stop submitting because they can't get the certification. They can't get the verification. So there's no point in wasting your time. It's like Amazon saying, if you answer yes to this, we're not going to publish your book. That's fine, but Amazon's got to check, right? Once the writers know that Amazon is checking, there's no point in trying to submit to Amazon. It's not going to work. So you're going to have to go do something else with your time. So what you'd see, I think, is the submission volume fall because the number of fakes or suspicious or, tampered with pieces of material don't come into the pipeline. And what that will do also is it will allow the reviewers, whether it's a publisher, an editor, more time to concentrate on the stuff that they actually want to concentrate on. I talk to publishers and book agents every day, and they are overwhelmed. They can't give the attention to great work that these works used to get 5 years ago. And why they can't do that. I talked to a literary agent who says she gets 1,400 submissions. She gets 1,400 submissions a month.
Wow.
I mean, how any human can go through that with any sort of accuracy and actually pay attention to, is this the next Pulitzer Prize winning culture defining novel, or is it a piece of junk? The junk should be pretty easy to spot, but the actual good writing is getting glossed over,
right?
Because they're having to spend so much time pushing stuff off their desk. It was a long tangent around the answer about metrics. I would suspect that if we got a verification system in place where the burden was on the creator of the content, submissions would fall, attention to detail by the receiving party would go up, and eventually, pretty quickly, the product that comes out would go up because better stuff would go in. The people receiving it and editing it or changing it, reviewing it, would spend more time on it, and the quality would eventually go up on the outside.
Right.
But that's a theory. We don't know yet.
Yeah. So to kind of start wrapping up here, I want to be mindful of your time. There is this thing where now we see a lot of retail platforms being swamped by content farms. So someone puts a product on Amazon, and within minutes, there are tons of 5-star reviews on why this product is the best thing since mac and cheese. And the same thing happens with even books on Amazon. An AI generated book, and it's published. The whole thing from start to finish took 2 hours. And then the book is on Amazon, and then there are reviews, 5-star reviews saying, I love what this person said on page 45 and how they tied it.
Yeah, within 10 minutes.
Yeah, within 10
Yeah,
so
that's right.
What parallels do you see between academic spam and all these content farms that are swamping retailers? And is there any cross-industry fixes that can be borrowed?
Yeah, it's interesting because that's a great question. It's a really good example, right? Amazon and Quora, I know, and other sort of big aggregators do care about the reviews, right? They know that review farming, these things that pop up, 38 5-star reviews in 10 minutes, hurts their review system, and their review system is essential. So they are policing that. They are reviewing it, and they are removing reviews that don't meet criteria and that they suspect are AI generated or farm created. They are checking that. And so eventually that's going to come down. When the reviews don't stick, people are going to stop paying for them. But that's what the marketplace needs everywhere. Once it's demonstrated that the tactic doesn't work, people are going to stop doing it. So how does that transfer to academia? I don't really know that it does. It might, except for the example, the the paper farm, the paper mills that we see in academic research that churn these things out also exist in schools, right? You can get somebody to ghostwrite your paper in any subject you want, very fast, usually at a reasonably good quality and usually at a very low price point. So you could farm that out, your entire education that way if you wanted to. Increasingly, I think these writers are using AI to be able to manage their output, right, to be able to serve more clients. But that's just a suspicion. I haven't seen anything documented on that.
Wow. So one final question for you. What would success look like in 1 to 2 years? How would readers notice? Academic readers, scientific readers, people that read screenplays, and so on.
My goal for this is in a marketplace of content, whether it's books, movies, TV shows, academic research, magazine publications. Again, it doesn't work in school settings for students, but for any sort of adult marketplace about content, that we have a very easy to recognize symbol of verification that this particular product that you're about to buy or about to read was human written and not AI created. Something that's verifiable, something that can be easily transferred around, and let the market decide, right? I say this all the time too. If you don't care if it's AI, that's fine. I'm not here to tell you that's a bad decision. I think a lot of things that people might buy and consume, AI doesn't really matter. If you're throwing on Netflix at 2:00 in the morning and you want some escape sci-fi show just to like chill, do you care if AI wrote it? I probably don't. That's not what I'm not looking for that, right? That's not for me a big deal. But, if it's a documentary on, the Obama administration, that I'm watching, yeah, I do care that an actual historian with expertise wrote this thing, and I'd like to be assured of it. And there are all kinds of parallels that you can do, right? The food has labels. Is it organic? How many calories are in it? Where did it come from? Wine has to be labeled, country of production. What are the grape varieties? Because we've gotten used to consumers deserving information about what they're about to buy and consume, except we don't have anything remotely like that for the stuff you put in your brain. You're sort of on your own. And I just think that's silly when it is doable to have a system like that. Again, you may not care if you're looking for books on Amazon and you want to read a romance novel, is there a little green check mark in the corner or not? Maybe you don't care. That's fine. That's cool. But maybe a lot of people do care and they want to hear from real people. And so they'd say, no, show me only the stuff with the green label, because that's what I want to buy. To me, that would be the success, that the verification system has taken hold and we've cleaned a lot of the stuff out of the review and submission and publication process. But in addition to that, that finds its way into the marketplace. For me, would be an amazing win for consumers and for producers, right? Like I write, I literally put my fingers on the keyboard, and I would like, this is going to sound terrible. May have to beg you to edit this out, but I want credit for that. In a world where AI is so easy and so cheap, people who actually roll up their sleeves and do the work should be able to be recognized for that.
Right.
I think that's a very fair trade.
Yeah.
Art in every other place we look, whether it's paintings or making furniture or, custom anything, custom tailor, people who do the work get credit for it.
Right.
But that hasn't found its way to writing yet, and it should.
Yeah. And to your point, I know Spotify is doing something regarding the music on its platforms, because now they realize it's so easy within seconds to create tracks, audio.
Yeah.
And the popular one that is going all around is an AI remix of a 50 Cent song, I believe it is. And it's so good that it's better than the original that I think it was 30 years ago that 50 Cent made. And I'm sure that took him 6 months or 8 months to make that one track. And then someone just clicked a few buttons on the computer. And so now Spotify is doing a crackdown saying if our systems detect that you upload anything, a 2-minute song or 1-minute song, we're going to ban your entire account and you won't be able to upload anything. And same thing for even podcasts like this, where you have to be able to prove somehow that you had a conversation with another human. And maybe some music or some ad copy is AI generated, that's fine. But if you say 3 hours of content is human generated, that should be 3 hours of content that is human generated. So,
I agree. I mean, again, if it's a good song, maybe you don't care. But you ought to be able to know is where I come at. Right. I mean, you've been doing this podcast for years, and it takes effort.
Yep.
You have to find the guests. You have to screen the guests. You have to prepare.
Yep.
You have to get your questions. You have to do the time to actually do the interviews, to have thoughtful conversations. You have to edit. You have to upload. It's sad that we're in a world where you should get credit for that because it's so easy to fake now. But I genuinely believe you should get credit for that.
Yeah.
And people who are taking the shortcuts should not be able to get that credit. Again, that doesn't mean they can't make their fake podcasts, make them all day long. I don't know. But you need a way, I think, just my belief. Again, no one cares. I think you ought to be able to get some sort of differentiator, a gold star, a badge, thumbs up, something that says, no, here's somebody who's actually doing the work to make a product. And if you care about that, check this guy out, right? That's what I think. That's what I would like to see.
Right. This has been a fun conversation. Thank you so much again for coming. And I would like to have you on maybe sometime in the new year to see where the state of AI and AI slop and AI, everything AI. So
I would love that. I may have some very big and exciting news for you.
Okay.
On that in the first quarter of next year,
nice.
If things go well.
Nice.
But please check back with me.
Sure. Definitely stay in touch. Yeah. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks again.
If you like this episode, please share it with a relative, a friend, a coworker, a neighbor, an acquaintance, and so on. And then please leave a rating or a review on your favorite podcast app. My name is Bidemi Ologunde, and this is the Big Picture Podcast. Thank you for listening.